When wonderful fields and hills, cypresses and clouds high in the sky are still, keeping silence in the rays of the midday sun, the murmur of a tiny brook speaks to us. Other voices and sounds join this murmur. They are numerous. They belong to lookermans and augurs, artists, musicians, soldiers, and beautiful ladies. These are the voices of people who passed away more than 2,500 years ago in the silence of their countless tombs. These are the voices of the people who used to wield power over these lands. We are Etruscans, children of a mysterious tribe. At different times we used to live on the lands of Etrúria. Different were our earthly paths, but we could have met on the paths of eternity to tell our story. Maybe one day this message will have found its way to your heart as well. Etruscans, pilgrims in eternity. Today, having set off for a journey over the lands of ancient Etrúria, we'll be surprised. So few remains of the Etruscan civilization are left. Uninhabited and lonely are their roads, bearing silent witness to a long-gone life. Nowadays they lead to nowhere, to cities that have passed away forever, cities which cannot be brought back to life. Time has destroyed Etruscan temples made of wood, leaving us only with stone basements. Marvelous terracotta sculptures have turned to dust. As a result, in museums today we'll find only fragments of a profound and beautiful world created by master hands of Etruscan painters and sculptors. The Etruscan language has been forgotten. Scriptures have been lost. Now we can only read restrained words of sepulchral dedications encrypted on sarcophagi. But we are left with the tombs of Etruscans, which used to be full of treasures. We can still see majestic ruins of towns of the dead, carved of travertine in rocks. We can explore mysterious caves descending into the depths of the earth. We can wander around enigmatic green barrows that in their own way are ready to tell us the story of the people who believed in immortality. Chapter 1. Mysterious Children of Etrúria. In ancient times, the Etruscans were already shrouded in mystery. They were a people of prophets and magicians, painters and farmers, jewelers and soldiers. Today, no one knows their true story for certain. From the 9th through to the 1st century BC, Etruscans lived in the central part of the Apennine Peninsula, forming one of the brightest civilizations of antiquity. The Etruscans and Greeks passed on their knowledge, wisdom and experience from the fading antique epoch to the ancient Romans. Afterwards, they somehow unexpectedly went away to nowhere, dissolving into the Roman culture. Their fate is full of grandeur and beauty, cryptic tragedy and glory. The The Etruscan period of wealth and prosperity was mainly related to the extraction of minerals, for which this land used to be famous. The most important minerals were the largest iron ore deposits on Elba Island. Open pits still exist here nowadays. Travelling around the island, one can observe reconstruction of ancient furnaces meant for metal smelting. These furnaces were used by Etruscans over 2,000 years ago. In those times, the Greeks called this island Aetalia, smoky, because of the heavy smoke caused by numerous furnaces. Ships which used to pass by faced a miraculous sight, an island densely covered with red lights. Etruscans were open to different traditions of the East, West, and South. Their culture contains traces of Greek, Egyptian, Celtic, and Phoenician influence. Etruscan masters used to create perfect items. Their ceramics, metal, and gold work were highly appreciated all over the Mediterranean coast. It is said that the Gaul and ancient Celts learnt the secrets of the grapevine from Etruscans. First-rate engineers of Etruria knew how to drain large waterlogged swamps. Architects erected bridges, arches, and aqueducts. Nowadays, a network of roads constructed by Etruscans still astonishes. It used to join Etruscan cities and small settlements. The 6th century BC was the flourishing peak of Etruscan culture and its city-states. Arretium, Cere, Clusium, Cortona, Perusia, Populonia, Tarquinia, Volterra. Here are just a few names of Etruscan city-states. There is something great and unexplored in even just the names. There were 12 of them, the most important city-states of Etruria. They were a mystic union of cities, the heart of Etruria. Every year the city heads, locomons, came together for the Supreme Council in order to solve Etruria's most important issues. The Roman sources state that locomons were concurrently rulers and magicians. Their position was, in the first place, of a religious nature. Etruscans could have created a powerful empire, but they did not wish to. Of much greater importance to them was to reach spiritual unity. Everywhere in everyday life, Etruscans noticed signs. According to Titus Livius, they were the people who more than anyone else followed religious customs. Since ancient times, their particular care about life after death was astonishing. Chapter 2. In Search of Immortality. Here is an ancient necropolis of Cere. Here one can feel an extraordinary peacefulness. A special quietness and beauty fills the air in this secluded spot. Once you are at this place, your heart enjoys being here. For 3,000 years, soft silence has been embracing these huge hills covered with grass, with antique stonework at the foothills. For some people, these barrows were the last shelters in their earthly lives, and the beginning of their pilgrimage in eternity. When he died, it seemed as if he had just fallen asleep. A feast was dedicated to Turris's funeral. I did not worry for him, who henceforth was following a different path to the other side of life. He was my friend. Our music, dances, songs and ritual combats were the last earthly greeting addressed to him. He was going to be born in the world of gods. Etruscans believed that after death, the soul continues its pilgrimage, but in a different world. Enriched by new experience, it would return to the earth, because this pilgrimage would last forever. Here are frescoes of Triclini's tomb. It seems as if now we can still smell the scents of victuals. They seem to be alive, these dancing figures. One can see luxurious garments, unusual gestures coming from the depths of the remote world. Clarions and reed pipes have long ago ceased. Laughter has turned in silence, and dances have stopped. But why does an unexpected pain of recognition strike us? How do we recognize a simple and beautiful ideal of life, which we find in the world of free and smiling Etruscans? Thousands of years have passed since the decline of the antique Etruscan culture. Nevertheless, for us it still often appears to be an ideal of the lost enlightened world, happy with its unity with nature. These are ancient burial mounds in Tarquinia. A formerly important town of the dead is today turned into a museum. Over 200 ancient burial places out of 700 are decorated with frescoes dated from the 3rd to 6th centuries BC. Etruscan and Greek artists worked here together. There were many of them in Tarquinia. Once a Greek named Demerad founded here an artistic workshop. He had many apprentices. They knew how to decorate vases, to cover walls of burial vaults with frescoes. Did they ever think of the fact that they were creating works of art which would last for centuries? That their frescoes would tell the story of their people? Here is a famous tomb decorated with a scene of hunting and fishing. Perhaps we could have seen here something beyond the simple scene of everyday life of Etruscans. The sea is the symbol of life and new birth. A young diver is similar to a newborn soul that comes into this world, where everything disappears and appears fresh. just like these wonderful dolphins. They are the symbol of the visible and invisible voyage through the waves of eternity. Fishermen in the boat symbolize sages. Their boat has an all-seeing eye. They would be able to lead you through waves and elements of this world to the other coast, to the coast of knowledge and truth. I am Val Sperina. I come from Volterra. Many of these alabaster sarcophagi have been made in my workshop. My favorite story is the parting at the gates leading to the other world, a farewell gesturing. These are Lhasa. They are winged beings who accompany the soul into the other world. Without these creatures, the soul cannot continue its way beyond the border of life. These beings also record chronicles of each of us, so that later on, in view of the Supreme Judge, they can speak out about our vices and virtues. A day will come when my apprentices carve of alabaster the same scene for me. Hundreds, thousands of sarcophagi are kept nowadays in numerous museums of Etruscan history all around central Italy. Among them are true masterpieces. Etruscan sculpture's art astonishes by its masterful creation, to say nothing of sincerity. Like this sarcophagus from Cerveteri, exhibited in the Museum of Villa Giulia. You can see an expression of peace and serenity on the faces of the married couple. They are not afraid of death. Now they are facing the parting, but they know that they will meet behind the mysterious threshold. True love is stronger than parting. You are the light bringing life, your exalted eyes in the scent of spring. I cannot live without you. You are my moon and my soul. You are the shadow and eternity of mine. I cannot live without you. A dance and harmony, a golden diadem and boundless sea. That's what you are for me. I cannot live without you. You are my sitar and my flute. You are my breeze at night. I shall be waiting for you forever. Like many other ancient peoples, Etruscans were highly sensitive to magic and beauty. They were very skilled jewelers. All these bracelets, earrings and fibulas formerly belonged to beautiful ladies of Etruria. Due to ancient historians, we know that almost all noble Etruscan women had good command of art, of divination and magic, had profound knowledge of mathematics and medicine.
My name is Ramto Kulpnir. This necklace is a present from my beloved husband. He gave it to me just before he set off for a long journey beyond the borders of this life. This is another symbol of our eternal love, a magic talisman that will safeguard me the rest of my life. Eight centuries were given to the Etruscan civilization by gods, time, and destiny. At least this is what pagan priests and an ancient oracle stated. There was hardly any civilization among ancient ones who could compete with the Etruscans in the art of future prediction. Chapter 3. Prophets of the Future. These ruins of an Etruscan temple, and those of a Roman one, constructed later on at the same place, remain in Fiesole, near Florence. Two altars, Roman and a small Etruscan one, are situated in front of the entrance to the temple. Here Etruscan pagan priests used to carry on their sacred ceremonies, which always took place outdoor in order to read any divine sign from the sky. Redoubtable, furious, and invincible Lord, ruler of lightning, Father of all existent, please be gracious towards all of us. Give us a chance to end our lives in dignity. Etruscan gods are invisible and omnipresent. In holy groves, caves, or sacred springs, they are given prayers and thanks at night. Prayers are given to Tanaya, the Thunderer, similar to the Greek head of Olympus, Zeus, the keeper of laws and justice. Wise Minerva, the patroness of fishermen, artists, and healers. Fearless Hercules, the mighty warrior, defender from evil forces and diseases. Etruscans believe that water heals the body as well as the soul. That is why they assumed Hercule lived near springs. Watching the rising sun, Etruscans extolled and thanked Apollo. They called him Aplu. He was the god of light, concord, and harmony. These golden plates were found not far from the ancient port of Perga. They contain one of few discovered texts in Etruscan language not of a burial nature. They contain an Etruscan king's address to God. Saint Lady Astarte, this is the holy place created and sanctified by King Teofera Bilanus in the month of sacrifice to the sun. As a gift to the sun, I have built the temple, because on the 3rd year of my rule, in the month of Kera, Astarte asked me to build a temple. Let the statue of God in the temple
stay as many years as there are stars in the sky. Etruscans deemed gods in the first place, while they themselves tried to respectfully guess God's will. These were bright and sunny days of ancient Etrúria, says the English writer Hamilton Gray in her book, when Tag taught people to forecast the future by the flap of an eagle's wing. The son of the supreme Etruscan god Tania's name was Tag, or Tagidus. According to the legend told by Cicero, he appeared not far from the village of Tarquinia. An infant with grey hair sprang on the freshly dug soil furrow from under the ground, in order to bring the divine knowledge to Etruscans. Within one day, Tag grew old, and having implemented his mission, descended back under the ground. Locomons put down his words, and later on, all pagan priests of Etrúria, upon rewriting these words, got to know them. These were the scriptures of the Etruscans. They taught the art of prophecy and rituals of town founding, building of temples and altars. One could find there a teaching about people's destiny after death, as well as the description of rituals meant to alleviate the god's will. Divine laws were known only by priests. They should have their knowledge for the use of all people. I am La Filius. That was great knowledge given to us by gods. I forecast the future following the divine stroke of Tania in the sky. I was able to rule thunder, give rise to a flash of lightning, or safeguard from it. My words will probably tell you very little. It always used to be like that. What one perceives as the precious piece of wisdom might just be a beautiful nonsense for another. In your times, a holy science has long been forgotten. It will take a lot of efforts to reveal its mysteries once again. Etruscan priests, who told fortunes using the liver of sacrificed animals, were called garuspics. A model of liver remained till nowadays, slightly opens the mysterious veil covering antique knowledge. Each piece was connected with a particular section of the sky, and the god patronizing it. It was believed that at the moment of sacrifice the gods changed organs of the animal, thus giving signs to interpreters. There were other communities of pagan priests. Augurs used to forecast the future by the flight of birds. Flemings used to read the will of gods by flashes of lightning during a thunderstorm. Every tiny detail, such as the color of lightning, the place where it appeared in the sky, where it struck, the time at which it was noticed, everything had its own meaning. There is a difference between Etruscans and Romans, philosopher Seneca, the tutor of the Roman Emperor Neron, used to say. We believe that lightning is a consequence of atmospheric thickening, while they believe that the atmosphere is getting thick in order to cause lightning. Every item or notion for them is of a divine origin. They believe that events happen in order to bring messages from gods, rather than believe that events have their meaning just because they have happened. In Tarquinia, at times of flourishing and glory, there were 60 priests, whose words were considered law by Etruscans. Here once took place the story which determined the fate of Etruscan civilization. I am Auli, Kylie, Vipinus, Agaruspic. I remember the day when Romulus's messengers came to us in Tarquinia. They came to ask us to help them in founding a new city in compliance with all the rules of holy science. Romulus knew that such approach would guarantee prosperity to the city over many forthcoming years, while we knew that the grandeur of Rome would soon overshadow the glory of Etruscan cities. Nevertheless, we didn't refuse Romulus. This knowledge didn't belong to us. It was trusted to us by the gods, so we could not refuse the one who was openly searching for divine patronage. Chapter 4. The City of the She-Wolf. Ancient Rome was founded in 753 BC by the legendary Romulus. Many centuries that followed after the setting of the great city, Romans erected all settlements, be it a town or an army camp, according to the rules of the holy science of Etruscans, i.e. aligned with parts of the world having a perpendicular axis, Cardo and Decumanus, that cross the settlement from north to south and from east to west. Etruscan kings, who ruled Rome since 616 BC for about 100 years until 506 BC, did a lot for the city. They were Luci Tarquin Prisc, Servi Tullia, and Tarquin the Proud. Before they came into power, Rome was comprised of several small settlements on the bank of the Tiber. Nothing indicated its future grandeur. At the place of the future forum, there were marshes. Unpaved streets led to the modest palace of the sovereign of Rome. Less than a few decades passed before everything changed. The marshy territories were drained. Rome launched its own monetary system, paved its first roads, and constructed aqueducts. Above the flat line of small houses, a grand temple shot up devoted to Jupiter, Juno, and Minerva. Periods of war and peace many times alternated in Etruscan Roman history. We know about one of its episodes due to Plutarch, who told it in the form of a beautiful legend. Janiculus, 507 BC. They were about to win. Etruscan troops led by the king of Clusium, Lard Porsena, stood on the hill of Janiculus. They came here to restore the legitimate power of the Etruscan ruler of Rome, Tarquin the Proud, who had been banished from the city. The settled Romans suffered from hunger, but didn't want to surrender. Plutarch writes about a young Roman man called Guy Muzzi. At night, he secretly penetrated the enemy camp, aiming to kill the Etruscan king. The brave young man was caught and exposed to torture by fire. The Roman didn't express any sign of fear. He put his own right hand into the fire and kept it there till it turned into charred bone. The Etruscan king was amazed. He let the brave Guy Muzzia go, presenting him with the king's sword and raising the siege from the city. My name is Lard Petrus. In those days I was in Porsena's troops, We all felt disappointed at Porsiena's order to leave Janiculus. I understood that he made his decision in compliance with what was his sense of honor. He left our camp with stores of foodstuffs on the hill. He left it all for the starving Romans as a sign of respect. I have learnt Porsiena's lesson: stay generous at any time, under any circumstances, value courage and valor, regardless of who expresses them, your friend or your enemy. That was the very beginning of a military confrontation between ancient Etruria and Rome that lasted for many centuries. At that time, nobody knew how it would eventually end. The Etruscans were stronger and wiser then, as their history had started long before the Eternal City was founded. Over the centuries, the Etruscans many times saved Rome from trouble. In the Roman history, written by Titus Livius, we read about the plague which struck the Eternal City in the 4th century BC. Searching for rescue, the Romans asked the Etruscans for help. Garuspics organized a ritual dance in order to placate the gods. Dancers and flute players in masks moved silently and smoothly, following the sounds of the reed pipe. This was not just a simple dance, but a holy ceremony. The plague finally left Rome. Etruscan pagan priests taught Romans to communicate with the gods and understand their will. They taught them to set up and keep ties with the invisible world. The historian Titus Livius states that Roman patricians used to send their children to Etruria for studies. They used to send them to Tarquinia, Caere, Perusia, where children studied the Etruscan language as well as the basics of the sacred teaching of Tagus. The historian Tacit recalls the words of the Roman Emperor Claudius I addressed to the Senate. It often happened. As soon as times difficult for the state came, Garuspics were invited into Rome. With them, ancient ceremonies as well as the faith revived. Etruria and ancient Rome. Two great civilizations tied up by a common destiny met on the roads of history. One was already turning to the dawn. The other was about to turn into the beginning of a new world. Veio, the year 485 BC. My name is Aunt Magni. We were too naive as if we were children. We were witnesses of the growing power of Rome, but we could hardly imagine that one day all the might of the Roman legions would fall onto our heads. No more than 22 years would pass since the siege of the Eternal City by the Etruscan king Porsena, when the Roman legions set off for the conquest of their ancient neighbours. Veio was the first on their way, the stronghold of southern Etruria. It was the closest Etruscan settlement to Rome. The long-lasting arguments about the salt mines belonging to the city had not ceased over the centuries. Veio went through 14 wars against Rome before it surrendered in the unequal struggle. My name is Verta Partruus. I was among the defenders of Veio. We were courageous soldiers, but we were constantly defending while Rome kept creating its empire, which was to turn into the greatest empire of the ancient world. Veio applied for help to the Union of 12 cities, but they refused to help. We didn't manage to understand that our strength was in unity. Everyone stood for oneself. We lost this war. The final siege of Veio lasted 10 years. Only in 396 BC did Roman leader Marcus Furius Camille manage to seize the city. Veio surrendered and was burnt, while Marcus Furius Camille cried at its ruins. Chapter 5. Breath of War. Etrúria, the 4th century BC. The fire of war hasn't ceased on the territory that used to be free and safe, in the world of happy and smiling Etruscans. The war exhausts, bringing fear of death and desperation. One by one, Etruscan towns have been conquered, and the freedom-loving people joined to the bosom of the Roman Empire. Etruscans became overwhelmed with anguish. Does the immortality they expected look like this? We were suppressed by fear. We thought that the gods and destiny directed flashes of lightning at us as punishment. But no, we ourselves caused these flashes of lightning. Fear and oblivion settled in our hearts. We stopped believing ourselves and in ourselves. Perception of the rapidly approaching end suddenly deprived the Etruscans of their natural optimism, of the profound trust in the laws of destiny. The fear of time's transience pulled them down, undermining the basic belief that life will last forever beyond the lines of death, that one day they would turn into gods. His soul's fair temple is defaced. To those weak ruins muster troops of cares, to ask the spotted princess how she fares. She says her subjects with foul insurrection have battered down her consecrated wall, and by their mortal fault brought in subjection her immortality, and made her thrall to living death and pain perpetual. Step by step, the Romans penetrated Etruscan territories. Note plates containing details of war triumphs depicted on Capitol Hill show the impressive rhythm of battle victories. The Etruscans kept courageously fighting. They still believed that the gods would give them the strength to win. Vases and sarcophagi of those days were mainly decorated with Greek scenes, especially from the myth about the conquest of Troy. Etruscans wanted to follow the example of Greek heroes like Achilles, Aias, and Odysseus, wanted to mysteriously gain their strength, courage, firmness, and finally win. They wanted to win the way the Greeks had managed to win the Battle of Troy. Etruscans imagined themselves triumphant Greeks. A great myth was about to become reality. But alas, this time the role of Troy on the arena of history was prepared for Etrúria. For much imaginary work there was. Here, the painter had anatomized. Time's ruin, beauty's wreck, and grim care's reign. Here weeps Hecuba, here Priam dies. Here manly Hector faints, here Troilus swoons.
Here friend by friend in bloody channel lies, and friend to friend gives unadvised wounds. The last Etruscan town to surrender in 41 BC was Perusia. Surrounded by Roman troops, it was burnt in a fire lighted by its citizens, who didn't want their houses to be destroyed by the Romans. Thus, ancient prophecy turned into reality. 8 centuries after its birth, Etrúria came to an end, but its light didn't. I am Lat Centenate Caesa. I was one of those who kept ancient teachings. All the existent appears, becomes old, and dies in order to be born again. People, civilizations, towns, everything has its own time. Our time came, and we silently went away. Our language was forgotten. There is hardly anyone who recalls the names of our gods, but we shared all our knowledge with Rome and turned into its part. As a result, ancient Rome became the center of the entire Western world. While memory about us, it will not disappear. Several centuries later, when in the 5th century AD, Roman civilization itself fell victim to the onslaught of barbarians and Europe sank into the Dark Ages, the Etruscans were forgotten. For more than 1,000 years, this wonderful land kept the secrets of the Etruscans in order to uncover them again and astonish the people of completely different times and epochs. Epilogue. Perhaps you are interested not only in our fragments, helmets, and frescoes. Probably you are interested in our search for answers to the questions about the mysteries of the existent, about the sense of life and death. Who knows? Your questions might just be the same. This terracotta sculpture of Apollo was found at the place of the former Etruscan temple, Portonaccio in Veio. It is dated more than 2,500 years. It is said, when in 1916, an archaeologist, Giulio Giglioli, first released the head and shoulders of the wonderful statue from the sand, he couldn't help but kiss it, being unable to keep the feelings that overwhelmed him. The Etruscan soul, naive, simple, ironic, is smiling through the lips of a mysterious god. We look at the statue, trying to imagine the Etruscan master. His chisel managed to make the stone smile. No doubts, the master himself knew how to smile. We are Etruscans. We have left these traces, probably for our own selves in the future, when we will come to the earth thousands of years later. We have left these traces in order to remember everything we used to know. The sun is setting. Permanently moving clouds are changing their forms.
twilight is covering the hills of Etrúria. Similarly, the light of the Etruscan civilization has gone and disappeared. There is only an enigmatic scent of mystery which hasn't lifted over the centuries. Etruscans are smiling to us through the centuries, as if to say, aren't we all pilgrims in eternity?